First up, I have to say, I'm so proud of you guys. Not one person corrected me on where the engine for a Volkswagen Beetle goes in the last video. Now, if I can just get you guys to stop correcting me about things I get right by saying the same information I already said straight back to me, it will be like I watched my son grow up before my very eyes. Anyways, some people have been asking if I could do another PerspectiveEnd recommends video, as it's getting close to Christmas, and they want to know what they could get for someone else, or what they could request to get for themselves. And sure, I actually do have a solid log of figures, both cheap and expensive, to recommend to you guys. So I can absolutely bash out a holiday-aimed recommendation video. For starters, in the top 4 of the last What's the Best, there were 3 Decepticon mad scientists. Well, 2 and 1 Predacon. Buy them. Starting from the cheapest, Legacy Shockwave is an absolutely killer little figure. He's got a little trouble standing as the backs of his heels are pretty hollow, so he does have a tendency to tip over. But otherwise, this is easily the second best core class they ever released, with a great transformation, solid posing, and a good ult mode. It's $10, and you can't go wrong with that kind of money on something this good. Then you got Kingdom Tarantulas, and this might just be the best of the modern beast formers I've gotten my hands on, and the only ones I don't have so far are Inferno and Dragon Megatron. The robot mode is top tier. It's probably the most accurate, least compromised robot mode out of all the Beast Wars revival figures, outside of Black Arachnia, but he is definitely more durable than her, he's bigger with better QC, he's got more posing, his transformation is actually a good amount of fun, and his beast mode, while terrifying, is one of the best, most accurate beast modes we've gotten. Kingdom didn't produce a lot of beast formers I would call slam dunks, but this dunks so hard the ball bounced back up through the net. And then you got G-Axis, who's a scientist in the continuity where I like his character, so I'm counting him as one. It is such an ugly figure. Ugly head, hideous colors, awful extra details like the Hermes wings, and yet it rules enough that it overcomes. I pulled the shitty, stupid little bat wings off his legs just to try to help this thing look a little better at all, but while I may not like the way this looks, I can't fault it for that because it's exactly right. And I do have to admit that it gives him character. He is not generic looking at all. His plastic is kind of that weird, gross, soapy white stuff that they used for Ape Face, but I don't think that this type of polymer ever yellows, so at least that won't go wrong. And it poses great. The opening hands really adds a lot to the figure. It's not something that you'd normally think of as being all that big a deal, especially if it's not fully articulated, but at chug scale and quality, I can say that this has a lot more impact than you expect it to. And the transformation is just loads of fun. I wish it felt like this figure was complete when you're done, but I can't deny the highlights this thing goes through on the way to its ult mode. And then the ult mode is stupid and incomplete, but there are a few different configurations you can put it in to try and wrangle something a little cooler out of him. I'm personally fond of leaving the wings accordioned down along the sides, which gives him a more typical jet form. But yeah, despite all its ugly, this is a remarkably fun figure. Then get the best from Legacy Wave 1. Bulkhead seemed real bad when he was announced, much like G-Axis. But unlike the ugly old scientist, Bulkhead immediately looked better once we saw him in plastic. And then the figure everyone was sure was going to suck released to be the best figure of the first wave. Once again, it may not look like Bulkhead, but it feels like him. And weirdly enough, despite being a slimmed down version, he is still one of the chunkiest, fattest characters to ever get released in the Transformers, barring other versions of himself, Movie Hound, and Grandus. And despite his chonk, he poses excellently. I even forgot during the What's the Best that he's got an ab crunch, so this is a pretty lithe boy for his size. And then his transformation manages to not ruin it despite having a giant parts forming piece. And his Arctic Crawler / Troop Carrier truck mode is pretty sweet. It feels just like something the character would reasonably turn into, and it gives him a reason to be bigger than Optimus, who, I'd like to remind everyone, in Prime was a Mack truck versus Bulkhead's SUV. Yet Bulkhead had the far bigger robot mode. Mass shifting was a huge part of Prime people, and I don't get why it's so maligned. Good figure, you will most likely like it if you get it. Then I'll say pick up the 86 Perceptor. 86 Perceptor is not an amazing figure, but it is one that does literally nothing badly. It is satisfying to handle thanks to some delicious plastic, it poses well, it does have a slightly weird looking head that's not a big deal. It looks better than you might fear. He doesn't have a full case of the 80 sickness, his immune system was too strong for that. Makes sense for a microscope. His transformation is simple and satisfying, and his ult mode is basically perfect. It's just a good, if not complex figure. The next thing you're going to want is kind of cheating, since I already recommended the figure that this is a retool of, but buy the 86 Junk Heap. It's the Wreck-Ar again, but with a fairly impressive amount of retooling that really changes the vibe. And despite not having greater than 90 elbows or knees, just like its mold father, this poses really well. He's got several specialty joints like an ab crunch, backwards butterflies, sword-wielding wrists, and I almost want to count good toe-ups in this category as well, as usually it's a toe down that gets the attention. Transformation is a weak point, not enough to ruin the figure, but while a necessary use of parts forming, it's not a good one, and the process is a bit hard to keep straight in your head. And then, I don't know if the ult mode is all that accurate, but it's definitely distinct when compared to the Wreck-Ar he's based on. And given the fact that it looks like we are about to get more Junkions, you may want to start your army building early. Now, for the last chug figure I'm going to recommend, this one I both fully believe in and also find myself having a hard time actually going through with the recommendation. Not because it's not excellent, but because the QC on this is famously wild. You can get one that's just fine like mine, or you can get one that literally can't stand on its own because the joints are so loose. But the mold itself is so good, I gotta. 86 Sludge. Sludge is not just my low-key favorite Dinobot, but he's the one that most often gets shafted on the figures. Almost universally, he always gets the worst figures in whatever Dinobot team he's from. It's either not accurate, or it doesn't pose well, or the transformation is insultingly simple, and it probably has weird frustrations, something so uninvolved shouldn't suffer, and then getting one of these with the right dinosaur mode is for some reason like asking for the moon. The number of figures that get that facet of this guy right can probably be counted on half of one hand. So when I say that this is a version that does almost everything right with the exception of consistent QC, understand what that means. This is a version of Sludge, which looks just like the character in robot mode, though it does have kind of a bad case of the 80s sickness, still managing to look like the character, but also very much like the Great Khali. It poses better than most Sludges do. Even when you start getting into 3P, it's not getting shown up as hard as you might expect. It has one of the most accurate alt modes we've ever gotten. I don't know why this is so hard, but almost every Sludge out there gets the wrong dino head. But most importantly, this is easily the best transformation any Sludge has ever had. And it's not even close. Hell, this may be the best transformation a Dinobot has ever had. This thing is so damn cool, and it does almost nothing you expect in the process. I love this figure, it's excellent, and I have no doubt that if yours isn't built like crap, you will love it too. Now, let's get into third party by starting with a figure that's definitely gunning for the #1 slot in the best of year list for 2022. The Metal Slug transforming Metal Slug. I also hesitate to put this on this list because unlike the Sludge, you can't pick this up right now. Seems like word traveled fast, so this damn thing sold out in a heartbeat. They're doing a second run for the figure, but it's currently only on pre-order, so hopefully it's out by Christmas. But for an incredible price, literally $80, the price of a Commander, you get a third-party figure that's just about as big as a Commander, but with a level of quality and polish that puts Hasbro products to shame. This is why I'm so harsh on figures. I know that way better can be achieved for the same price, and this figure proves that. It is gorgeous, painted to the nines, made of the highest quality materials, it poses fantastic, transformation is decent, though you have to wear off a lot of paint to make that aspect on it not abhorrently stiff, and the alt mode is beyond perfect. It's the Metal Slug while still retaining posability, so it's not even a brick. This is doing so much and being so generous about it. Seriously, pick this up. There's nothing about this to make you regret it. It's underpriced for what it is, and it's over-delivering. Next up, I'm going to say pick up the Deformation Space Blaster. You are going to want to do that because the company may not be around for much longer, as they keep running into legal troubles, and they have to put their figures on super-duper super sale just to try and make any of their money back to keep themselves afloat. So I've seen this figure selling at online retail for $60, and it is both worth so much more than that, and even when it is at full price, this thing is really reasonable. $140, not even over the $150 mark, $140. I know that's a big step up in spending for most Chug buyers if you aren't picking up a Titan, but as someone who buys both, I can tell you that that's a pretty good deal on its own, let alone the $60 I've seen it go for. In fact, as of writing this video right now, it is currently on sale for that price at the Show Z store. This thing is sculpted better than all of its competition. The paint on it is a little weird and tacky, but it's not terrible. So this thing probably has the most definitive look of all the blasters. Looking at you, fans toys, you overrated hacks. Your blaster is hideous. This thing poses like a champ. The legs are a little weird, but once you get used to them, they aren't limiting you at all. The transformation is fast, fun, intuitive, and excellent. You shouldn't have any need of the instructions to get you through it the first time. And then the alt mode is perfect. I literally can't think of anything they could have done better. Even the tape door opening is super satisfying. Much like with the MP Soundwave, I legitimately do not see how you can make a better blaster. And then lastly for this video, MMC First Aid. And kind of by extension, any of the MMC combiner components. Soon they're going to release their Streetwise, so if you can't find this, maybe try that. And MMC has never given me a reason to doubt any of their modern releases. But this figure will be an excellent gateway into being able to tell if you're in for MMC stuff and other third-party figures in general, being relatively cheap for 3P, as is the way of Mastermind Creations. But I do have to warn you to remember what this list is. This is the mountaintop of figures, the ones that are not just great, but the ones that are so good that I think everyone should get them. So if you get this and decide that you need more third-party and masterpiece figures after experiencing these, remember, they will not be the equal of this. They will still be very good, but these figures are incredibly special. First Aid here poses like an absolute champion. Its QC is phenomenal, it feels great in the hand, it's a clean robot mode, the transformation is brilliant, and the alt mode is top tier, even if mine has a little trouble holding together in the back end. And the promise of what's to come with the limb mode leaves me salivating. And there you have it. If you want something to get for someone else this Christmas, or something you want to convince someone else to get you, I think this is a pretty good smattering. And I think that Christmas is the perfect time to try and get into something maybe a little bit higher end than you are normally used to. So maybe this is the year you finally check third party out. I didn't even need to try and pick the ones that are the best prices. It's just that the three I wanted to recommend are currently an insane value. Especially that blaster, if it's still on sale by the time this video comes out. But the Metal Slug figure is just an incredibly priced piece on its own. And then MMC always tries to give you the most for the least. Hope this helps you have a wonderful Christmas in a month, and that's not half what I have to say, but it's enough what I have to say. And I know, you know, what everyone else tells you to do at the end of these videos. So, if you liked what you saw here, please do that. And if you'd like to take it a step further, then please, share this video with any friend you think may be interested. I hope you all enjoyed listening to me waste your time.